Greetings, this is Jim Lindsay. This is a quick tutorial to talk to you about the discussion board. This is our first use of the discussion board, so I'd like to show you what it is and how to interact with it. I'm at the Blackboard site, and I'm actually creating this video before class even starts, and so what is on the announcement page for this lecture might be different than what you're going to see at the point when you get to use the discussion board, but don't let that throw you off. The main point is this: over on the left hand side there's a link for discussion board. If you click on that, by the way, let me get that out of the way. If you click on the link for discussion board, it will take you to this page, discussion board, and what I see may look a little different than what you see. I don't have any control over that. As the teacher, I think they present things to me a little bit differently than they do you, but the main content is going to be still helpful here. Let's take a look at it. What is a discussion board? Well, a discussion board is an online way for us to talk to one another, and obviously we're all in different locations. We may be, at this point I don't know where people are physically located, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're in at least multiple states, Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana. I wouldn't be surprised if there are people in further out than that. But with this discussion board, what we can do, I can pose questions to you. I can ask you to do some research. I can ask you to share your thoughts on things, and then you can do that. You can see what your classmates have said. You can respond to them, and so on. So it's a great way for us to try and get some sort of interaction in an online class like we would have in a face-to-face class. Is it as good as face-to-face discussion? No, not at all, but it's better than nothing. And so what I want you to do is participate in this discussion board. We have 4 discussion board activities throughout the summer. It's only 4 weeks out of the 8, so it's not, I don't think it's going to be too taxing on you, but let me show you how this works. Well, here's our first discussion board that we'll be working with. It's for the Batman module. It's our second one, our second week of class. This is going to be available. So it tells you the dates from 6/20 to 6/26. This thing will be available. Next, it has information for you right here talking about, what does this contain? Well, in this discussion board forum, there are 3 threads, and what that means is there are 3 different conversations. And as you can see, as you read this, and you'll have access to this by the time you watch this, you're going to be able to click on this and actually see it. So, so do that. You need to participate in all 3 of these conversations. So I'm asking you to do have 3 different thoughts, 3 different conversations. You have to participate in all 3 of those in order to succeed, to get a good grade. Please note that you cannot create any new threads yourself. Some teachers have it to where you can create threads. I don't. What I'd like to do is just pose some questions to you and have you interact with each other in those different threads. It's a philosophy. When you become if you become a teacher and you want to have students create their own threads, feel free to do that. But for me, I've found that this is the best way to facilitate this kind of discussion. It keeps everybody in the same place. When you let everybody create their own threads, you'll get 2 or 3 or 4 people who all start to say basically the same thing, but they're saying it in different threads, and they're not reading the other person's comments within the first thread. And so you have 3 people that could have been talking to the first person, but they missed that interaction because they're all creating their own different forums, if you will, or their own threads. So that's why I don't allow students to create their own threads. Please note this too: you must participate on at least 2 different days during the week. And that's really important. So again, you must participate on at least 2 different days during the week. The discussion board week runs from 6/20, which is a Monday, through 6/26, which is a Sunday. So on at least 2 different calendar days. So on like Monday and Tuesday, or Tuesday and Wednesday, or Thursday and Saturday, you have to be in 2 different days. You need to be in the board, or on the board. Why is that important? Well, the reason that's important is because by requiring that, and you'll see also with my first requirement down here, I'm forcing you to get in here and actually start to create some sort of conversation. If I let everybody do everything on one day, what happens is somebody jumps onto the board, they post all their stuff, they don't read what anybody else wrote, and then they never come back. It'd be like if we were having a classroom discussion, all of a sudden the door bursts open, somebody jumps in the door and says, hey, I think this, and then they close the door and they run down the hall. And so that's not a discussion, that's you just shouting what you think about something and then running away. And so by requiring you to be there on at least 2 different days, there has to be some sort of interaction, or it's going to help make it more likely that there's going to be some sort of interaction. Now, let's take a look at these 3 items right here. I've got those 3 threads for you. Each of those threads is asking something totally different, and I want you to answer my questions in those threads, in each of those threads, by Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. So you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. There's the first 72 hours to get in there and answer the questions that I've asked you. They're easy questions. This isn't going to be rocket surgery or anything like that. I'm trying to make this an enjoyable activity for you. I want you to interact with one another, get to know each other a little bit. And I think if that's the case, I think you'll start to help each other out. And you'll see from the threads that are there that actually this is an attempt on my part to make it to where you guys can start to assist one another as well. Because as much as I will be available to help you, it's also nice if you guys can help each other out. So, you learn from each other as well as from the teacher, and the teacher definitely learns from the students. So this is, hopefully going to help make that happen. So again, you've got these 3 different threads, and I have asked questions in each of those. You have to answer all my questions in those 3 threads by Wednesday, 6/22. If you do that, if you've gotten in there and you've answered all the questions I have in all 3 threads by Wednesday, you can earn up to 9 points. Okay? Now, next, you need to interact with at least 2 classmates by 11:59. There's too many by's in there. I shall take one of those out. Interact with 2 classmates by 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, 6/26, which is the end of the week. So your first interaction with this may be logging in on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday and answering my questions. And then on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, I want you to get back into the board, and I want you to read what other people have written and then reply to them. That's the interaction. And so through that interaction, hopefully, this will pique your interest and you'll have some sort of conversation with somebody. I don't want you in here, I'm not trying to make you be in here every single day. That's too much. I think 2 times a week is reasonable, however. And I know I've taught classes in the past, and I know people that I teach with have required people to interact on as many as 4 different days. And so I think that's a little bit too much. But 2 days a week is definitely reasonable by having you interact with at least 2 different classmates. And those comments that you make to your classmates need to be substantive. And I'll mention that in just a moment, tell you more about that in just a moment. But don't just jump in there and say, I agree. Well, we don't care if you agree. I mean, that's kind of a stupid comment. Get in there and say, well, you ask them a question, or get in there and say, I disagree with you because of so and so and so. We want to have like some actual meaningful give and take between people here, and so that's what that point is for. So it's for 8 more points. If you get in there by the close of the week and you interact in a meaningful way with at least 2 of your classmates, then that's great. Now, and let me say this too: don't go overboard. Don't be that guy that replies to every single comment and has like 5,000 comments on the board. I mean, that's too much. It's just use your common sense. Just like if you were in a classroom, you wouldn't want the same guy making comments about every single item that's being discussed. This is supposed to be mimicking normal conversation. So every once in a while, you're going to chime in and say something, right? You don't want to be the person that sits in the back of the room and never says anything, but you don't want to be that other person in the room that talks all the time, because that's like everybody's like, shut up, So that's keep that in mind. And I've already mentioned this. Participate on at least 2 different days, and that 2 days of participation will also get you some points. Now, please look at the syllabus, because in the syllabus it talks about the there's a mention about the discussion board, talking about what is a substantive comment. Are you contributing to this conversation in some way? How are you contributing to this conversation? Cite your resources. If somebody is talking about something and you want to add to that discussion, say, well, I read an article over at yahoo.com that was talking about this, and here's some information about that. And you include a link. Or I heard a guy on the news. Here's what so-and-so of the Microsoft said about this particular topic. And so cite your resources, and that's discussed in this discussion board section of the syllabus. And also, there is a standards of conduct section of the syllabus that talks about basically how you should interact with other people. Be civil. I definitely, it's kind of fun when people disagree. And sometimes it's fun to play the devil's advocate. But just be civil about it. Don't curse. Don't be derogatory. And one of the other things you need to keep in mind: humor can be kind of difficult online. When somebody says something in person, and you obviously know it's sarcasm or wit or something that's funny, that can totally fail online. So be really careful about using humor. I'm not saying don't do it, but be careful, because it's really easy for other people to misinterpret what you're writing. And so read those standards of conduct to make sure that you're basically participating in a responsible and respectful way. Again, you can disagree with people. Lastly, once you post something to this board, you can't take it back. And so if you've had a 6-pack out with your friends, don't come back and get on the discussion board. I've had that happen on multiple occasions where people have basically been kind of drunk and they get on the discussion board and they just say some really dumb things. So don't get on the discussion board if you're not in your right mind, because once you put something there, it's stuck. Also, last point here, spelling and grammar matter. Like I goofed up and put 2 by's right there. That looks bad. Make sure that your spelling and grammar are correct. How do you do that? Well, what I try to do, and I failed right there because I have a mistake right there. I try to type all of my stuff in a word processor before I even put it on the computer. If I try to just type stuff live, I will almost always misspell something. It's just not one of my strengths. So if you're like me, type it in a word processor, spell check it, grammar check it, look at it before you put it on the computer. Let me show you how this works. So this is the forum where we're going to have our discussions. If you click on the forum link, which is right there, you'll see the little hand shows up. You'll see these are the 3 different threads. And ideally, you would, let me do this by date so these show up kind of, there you go. Who are you is like, this is our very first forum together. I'd like to know something about you guys. So if you click on that link for who are you, it says, it poses, tells you about something and poses some questions to you. We're going to work together this summer. I'd like to know something about you. Please answer these questions about yourself. So this is a real easy thread. You get in here, and I'd like to know, what do you like to be called? Tell us about a really great meal that you've had. Why was that meal so great? Again, does this have anything to do with computers? No, but we are going to be working together for the next 8 weeks, and so it would be nice to know something about each other. Lastly, and again, this is just another human interest kind of question. What's the last book that you read for fun, or what's a movie that you have recently seen or you last saw? And did you like that book or movie, and why? And so how would you interact with this? Well, there is a reply button right here. And so you click on the reply button, and then you get to make your response. And so again, as I mentioned to you, type your stuff up in a word processor. I've done that already. So over here in Microsoft Word, these are my responses to those questions, and I'll share those with you guys because again, I'm working with you, you're working with me. So just copy this stuff, and then I'll go back to the discussion board and change the subject line if you would. And then you just post I just copy and pasted, and there's my response to those questions so you guys can learn something about me. You hit submit. And then if you go back to the main board, if we go back to the discussion board forum here, you'll see under Who Are You, there are 2 total posts. If you look at it, it will have the initial question and then the responses underneath it. So we'll start to see this grow, and there's also different views that you can utilize within the discussion board, as far as there's like a tree view, but don't worry about that. But basically you'll start to see different replies down here. And so what I'd like for you to do is click on that reply button, tell us about yourself, post it, and then that's how this process works. So if you have questions, contact me. I look forward to learning some more about you guys, and I hope that you're going to enjoy this. So thanks for your time and attention. If you have questions, let me know. All right, me again. One last point, and I found that tree view I was looking for just a second ago. It's been a while since I've used the discussion board, so I'm a little rusty, and I apologize on that. I'm going to go back into the discussion board, and again, I know my view is probably a little different than yours, but you should see up at the top here that there's a list view and a tree view. This tree view is helpful. If you click on that, you'll see that, for example, this one right here has multiple comments underneath it. So when you look at it like that, you'll start to see, and what we're looking for is basically kind of a Christmas tree to kind of start to form here as people start to interact with one another. And that's what I'm looking for. But you can switch between the list view and the tree view, and you might find that tree view to be helpful when you're looking for people to reply to, looking for what's the main thread versus like the replies, and each different reply is going to be basically indented. So if you did a reply right after mine, it would be indented at the same level. If you replied to me, which I don't, I'm not looking for that, because you're going to be answering my questions anyway. I really want you guys talking to each other. And by the way, I'm probably not going to really participate as a on the board much. What I've also found is if the teacher is in there making all sorts of comments on the discussion board, it stifles conversation. I need to ask questions and then get out of the way and let you guys talk. And so I included one here just so you guys can learn something about me personally. But like for this stuff down here and this stuff down here, I'm probably in the subsequent conversations, I'm probably not going to be real active making comments, because I've made I want to hear what you have to say, and I've been able to fire the first shot basically to ask you the questions in the first place. So that was that last little bit. Sorry for a second bit of information, and you guys have a great